Huh?
Not even the check.
Don't count, so that's okay. That's okay.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started in a few minutes here, but first I'd just like to read a little information about public comments. If you'd like to speak to the county board and you haven't already signed up to do so, you must fill out a registration slip and turn it into the county board chair prior to the start of the meeting. The registration slips are located at the front of the room on that long table over there. Please keep in mind that the county board will not be able to respond to your comments or ask you any questions. Your comments are informational only. If further action is required, your comments or concerns will be directed to the appropriate department or committee. Thank you.
You had that guy from Long Lake call me? Yeah, no. So he's Long Lake, and I'm thinking, jeepers, the Long Lake that I'm not thinking that there's two Long Lakes. I'm only thinking of one at Plainfield. And I'm thinking to myself, I said to him, oh, what you're complaining about, that lake is all dried up. He says, to be all dried up. No, he says, oh, he says, sorry about that. Yeah, but I told him, I said, I think
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and we will call this meeting to order. Mel, would you roll call?
Mrs. Krentz.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Tim.
Here.
Mr. Piaski.
Here.
Mr. Exline.
Here.
Mr. Weddy.
Here.
Mrs. Collada.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Wadle.
Here.
Mr. Crawford.
Here.
Mark
Here.
Kirchner.
Okay, now we'll stand for silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with public comments. And first on my list is Lonnie Bigler. Is that right? Right. Okay.
My name is Lonnie Bigler, and I live on Salt Shore Drive on the southeast end of Long Lake in the town of Saxville. I'm sure some of you now already have heard of the problems we're having with the changes in the zoning lines. Our house is, the basement is probably 12 feet to 13 feet above the water level, and we're in the floodplain. We first found out about this just a matter of about a month ago, and we got a letter from our banker saying that the flood line had been revised and we are now in the floodplain. I had our county supervisor, Larry, here out to look at that, and I certainly can't personally blame any one of you guys for voting for this, because unless you know of the lay of the land around the lake, you're not going to realize how really bad these lines were drawn in certain areas. I got a map here that shows the flood line that was drawn by the DNR, and they said that was good for many years back. This comes from the Great Lakes flood certification office. They also give me a map of FEMA dated June 18th of this year, and it is way out. I went to the county planning office to get maps of the entire Long Lake area. Some places it looks very reasonable, and other places it's completely unreasonable. There's a place across the lake that's probably 4 feet above the current water level, and they don't appear to be in the floodplain. And I'm not saying these people should be, but I'm saying that we somehow or another got into the floodplain and really shouldn't be there. We built our house 16 years ago, and I asked the planning commission at that time. He said these maps have been, and these lines have been in existence since 1991. Well, not really, because the DNR floodplain would not have put us in that situation. So we are currently being forced to buy flood insurance. I've talked to other neighbors that had no idea that this has occurred. And one of my neighbors happens to be an attorney. It's questionable. I don't know if he's in or not, but I let him know about it. And he says, well, what government does, they can undo also. And I got the copy of the ordinance that was passed, and I see we are following the correct procedure here by talking to you people first. I talked to, I don't know if Mark Kirshner is here. Okay. He called me back on the phone here just the other morning and thought, well, one way to get out of it would be to have our town take over all of the zoning. That would probably be a big deal in one sense, big change, but it appears to us that that's possibly an option that we would have. But we're following what was in the ordinance, the procedure, if we have a problem with this. Now, if anybody wants to come onto our lake and take a look at where these lines go, I'll be more than happy to take you on our little cruise around the lake with the maps that I got from the zoning office here and show you where these lines go. The floodplain or the flood insurance, my banker says it cost me $500 or $600 a year. We were told, well, the only thing you can really do is hire a surveyor, and they'll have to, you know, you're going to have to prove that FEMA was wrong by drawing these lines, and it's going to cost us money. And I just don't see why we as taxpayers are going to be forced to spend money to avoid this. The other alternative would be to lower our property taxes, which would be certainly an alternative, but I don't think that's going to happen. So anyway, I'd ask for your consideration, and if you want my telephone number, it's 715-258-5746.
Thank you. I'm sorry your time is up. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mary and Cyrus Starch. Mary will be speaking for both.
My husband and I have the same problem. We received a letter from Chase Bank on July 9th stating that because we're in a flood plan according to FEMA's revised flood maps, we were required to get insurance and provide proof to the bank in 45 days that we acquired that. Within 21 days of receiving that letter, I got a map saying because you did not provide proof, we've acquired insurance for you, and you still have some time to contact your own insurance company. Their cost of insurance, flood insurance, for our property is $2,025 a year. I called our insurance company. They said it would be $400. We'd have to get 2 policies to cover the contents because the ceiling for flood insurance policies is $225,000. My dad bought this property on Long Lake in 1960, the property that we live on where our house is, had a double-wide manufactured home. We've been coming to Washera County and vacationing on Washera County lakes ever since I was a little girl. It would have to take a flood of biblical proportions where Noah built an ark to flood our property. We are on a steep hill. The lake is below us. Long Lake is a 274-acre lake, 75 feet deep, no inlets, no outlets, spring-fed, glacier-fed lake, glacial lake, 1,000 years old. There's no way this lake is going to flood us, or unless they're right down by the water, and I don't think this is fair. I'd like to ask you all a question to ponder. You don't have to answer me, I know you can't. Would you buy a house that was for sale if you knew it was in a floodplain? Would you feel comfortable buying a house knowing that it was in a floodplain? I ask you to come to my house. I'll give you a beer, a glass of wine, some hors d'oeuvres, and you can walk down all the steps to our lake and see how high we are above the lake. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, it's W46. Oh. Nice, Everett.
I'm speaking for my husband too. I'm his caregiver. He has Alzheimer's, so he would be speaking to if he could. Thank you.
All right, next we have Scott Motto. He is from 6332 St. Patrick's Lane.
I'm here to ask somebody if I can get an inspector that will help me out since I've been out of my parents' house for almost a year on a small building project that's forever going. The hired-in inspector has a problem with us, and he's not given us any leadway at all since last November. Kicked people off the jobs, the contractors, stopped the work, and I'm into it for $7,000 extra money. I got a building permit, going according to the building permit, not 1 inch of extra square footage. Got approved by the city of Madison for several things that have been done because he will not talk to me, anything. All he ever says is, I don't know, call Madison. So I did call Madison, talked to Lenny Cantor, Jack Miller, and Dwayne Hubley, and got several approvals through the state codes, and he turns them all down. I asked several times to get a new inspector. I know lots of people in Washera County that did receive a different inspector when they had problems. I haven't had a fair chance to get a new inspector, at least to come over and somebody with a cool head and look at and see what we're doing. And we asked if we could turn the power back on. I'm paying electric bill since last November. We temporarily shut it down for 3 weeks to a month. And I'm still paying the bill, and he will not turn it back on because whatever reason. Won't give me power. Use a generator, he says. And it's all brought up to code by a certified electrician. And he won't turn the power on so we can finish the job. But he wants me to finish the job his way. So if somebody could come out there, I talked to several people on this. I know Mark was one of them. And Mark can agree to a lot of things, but I know he's not gonna now. And I think I spoke to Ruth a little bit. But if somebody could please help me out as far as getting a new inspector out there to look at the project. I have nothing to hide. And at least turn the power on so we can work and finish the job up. And I got approved again today by Madison for one of the last things that he wants, and he shut it down. So I don't know if somebody can do something about this, or all I'm asking for is a new inspector or anybody to come out and look it over and see what we can do. I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Next we have Bernice Hansen from Poisippi. my concerns are about the roadsides and the care that has been not taken. Like, they used to cut out so that all the brush was gone. Now they send the workers out in the middle of winter with chainsaws. They have to cut it down, they have to burn it, stay there till it's burnt. When before they used to cut out the roadsides every year, twice a year, I'd be satisfied with once a year. And take a little pride in our county again. When you come into Waushara County, the only reason you know it now is because the shabbiness of the roadsides, and let alone the danger with the deer coming dashing out and other animals like bear. So I was just concerned about that and thought I'd let everybody know that we'd appreciate it if they would take care of our county again. Thank you.
Next we have Dave Peterson.
Dave Peterson, Waushara County Sheriff. County Board Chair stopped over today and asked that I maybe bring you up to speed a little bit with what's happening in law enforcement recently. I provided all of you with a news release that was put out to the press on the latest one, which is actually, I guess, event 4 and 5 in the last month. So we've been kind of running on fumes. This one really is being treated as two separate incidents, in that we had an armed robbery, which we're investigating, and there was a high-speed chase, and some shots were fired by officers from the Sheriff's Department, and so DCI is handling that investigation. Neither of these investigations are complete, so there's not a whole lot I can tell you about the investigations. I did, if you'll notice on that front page, I did have some scratching up there. There was an error that I made when I put out the news release. Our first contact with the suspect in the vehicle was at 22 in Royal Oaks, which is right directly across from the pharmacy. He evidently fled up there. Poor choice of roads, a dead-end road, one way in, one way out. Our officers were there within 2 minutes and actually met the vehicle coming out. Didn't realize it was the vehicle at that time because the dispatchers were still gathering information. But when we approached the vehicle, it took off and fled, and the chase was on. And I guess from that point forward, that's the part of the investigation that we did turn over to DCI, which is Division of Criminal Investigations. And I guess the only other thing I can add to the news release is that nobody at the CHN pharmacy was physically injured. And I will stress the word physically because I was up there today, and just like officers and staff at the sheriff's office, there are people up in that office that are emotionally having difficulty at this point in time. I just made a few notes of what I can talk to you about, and it has probably less to do with the actual what happened on that day, but as a result of this, by department policy, I had to put 2 of my staff on administrative leave because of the fact that they discharged their firearm. Both of these, happened on Thursday and Friday. One of them requested a vacation day on Monday, which was granted. The other one came back to work on Monday. And after talking with DCI and getting a little bit of information about their investigation, they're back to work, but I'm limiting them to what I want them to be involved in, i.e. if there's another armed robbery, I don't want them to be at the front line because we want to make sure that they're okay first. One of the questions that's been asked, and I can't really answer it, and that is, did this person, was he responsible for pharmacy robberies in Marquette and Green Lake County, and some other ones, quite frankly. We have shared our information with them. The parents have been cooperative in that endeavor, and I guess the other counties will have to answer for whether or not they're going to be able to solve theirs or not, but I guess I would say that it looks highly likely. This afternoon, 4 of us from my administrative team spent about 2.5 hours watching video, a squad video. Thank goodness we had the squad video, and listening to the radio traffic that went on during this event. George Peterman, in particular, has spent a lot of time reviewing our department policy, which just changed because we went to Lexipol, and so we're doing a lot of research on that. I talked to, between our department policy and in my kind of an informal initial DCI opinion, is that neither of our officers that discharged their firearms did so inappropriately. We believe that they followed our policy. We believe that they followed everything that they should have. We spent quite a bit of time when these 2 officers came back to work. George and I spent a lot of time not talking to them, but more listening to them. We did use the EAP. Actually, the person from that organization was up at CHN, so rather than having to send our people to someplace else, they came to our office on Thursday, the day after this event, and spoke to them then. But I think as it, George and I felt as though we needed to have a feel for where they were at emotionally, and making sure that they were ready to come back to work and do their job, because we don't know when the next event is going to happen. And I think those went well. They did find out that the sheriff probably didn't do something he should have done, but lesson learned. I guess there's probably a couple of things. But anyway, fortunately, we haven't had a lot of experience at this. Tomorrow, we're bringing in a professional debriefing team that's going to talk to all of my staff that was involved in this, from dispatchers, administrators, patrol officers, detectives, and we also invited the villages and city that provided us some support for them to come and join in that conversation. And then last week, Thursday, we were supposed to have a staff training, and we had everybody scheduled to come in. We canceled that because we were kind of running out of sleep time. We needed some sleep. But we are going to hold that next week, and probably will not invite Ruth to come and give us her 15 minutes, or the DA or the judge, what we had planned, because the major focus is going to be on lessons learned. In viewing the video and the radio traffic, it went very well. We have not seen any glaring errors, or we could have done anything differently, but just like any time you experience something like this, there's always another way to skin the cat, and maybe we can learn from this, and hopefully the next one will be so far away that we'll have forgotten it, but I doubt it. And then we're not including the CHN staff in that, but I was up there today and talked to the pharmacist and one of the gals that was working that day, and offered to do something ourselves for them, and either go up there or have them come down to our office where we can sit down and just kind of talk about it. I know from past experience when we had the bank robbery, and looking down the barrel of a gun is not a pleasant thing to do, according to people at that bank, and people left that employment after that, and so it's pretty serious, and in that case it was, I don't remember if it was a pellet gun or what it was, but it wasn't a real firearm. So we're going to try and help them through that. I met with Deb and Ruth this week because there's always a potential for lawsuits when you have something like this that the county would be named in. We have a house that the suspect damaged in entering the house, but we also did a lot of damage to the house when we attempted to make sure that we knew where he was prior to sending our people in. And so that's going to be a part of that. We have 2 squad cars that took a hit, moderate damage. Still, both of them are drivable, but we need to get those fixed. I have no idea what the cost of the mutual aid for SWAT teams and robotic cameras and that sort of equipment is going to be, but I can tell you that it's going to be not hundreds of dollars. It'll be thousands of dollars, and I would anticipate that it probably will end up being in the 5-figure range. And we don't have any of that at this point in time. We're also going to have some expenses. Quick Trip really stepped up to the plate and supplied a lot of food and water for this event. They were ready to do breakfast if we didn't resolve the situation before then. Fortunately, it was resolved before then, but they couldn't handle it all. They figured that was their community donation. We did have to go to some other businesses, so there will be some costs to that. And I guess what I'd like to leave you with is that I think that any of us that watch the news, read the newspapers, know that these events happen in Marquezan and Montello and Oshkosh and Waupaca and Green Bay, and now we've joined that list. It happened here. Pretty traumatic experience for the officers that were involved. It's something that they will live with for the rest of their life. We've been told that if we don't take care of our officers now, up front, that within the next 2 years, we probably will lose some officers just because of this event, and we might not even know it. And that's unfortunate if they make the decision for the wrong reason. And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that not only the officers that fired their, discharged their firearms, but the rest of them are in good shape. And I'm afraid that in the long term, we need to be better prepared for this event. One of the senior dispatchers said, you know, I've never been involved in something like this in the 27 years I worked here. And my response to her was, it won't be 27 years before this happens again. Unfortunately, that's the times we live in. So I'm sure that we're going to be looking at our budget and how we can, manage some more training. I don't know if it's additional equipment, whatever it is. But certainly we will have that thought out a little bit better by the time the Public Safety Committee meets, and certainly by the time that the next county board meeting. I forgot to mention the one thing that when they talked to Deb and Ruth that we did talk to, we want to be able to track this event cost-wise very good. So Deb and Donna have set up a special account or two so that we can get all of the expenses that are associated with this into a separate account, so that at the end of the day we will know how much it cost us, and it's not going to be a pleasant number, I'm sure. But at this point in time, I'm more concerned about the emotional stability of my staff on an individual basis. We're going to do this group meeting on tomorrow, but I'm thinking it's going to take some individual meeting with people and making sure, because cops are pretty macho guys and gals, and don't like to admit that they maybe have faults or feelings, but they all do, and this impacts everybody differently. Had one of our officers, actually yesterday, several days after the event, that broke down and cried. And it's just the way it is. Everybody reacts differently, and I and we need to make sure that we take good care of our staff. So with that, I guess I'll have more information certainly dollars and cents more information. Our investigation should be wrapped up within the next, I would think by the end of this week. DCI talked to the agent in charge. They're in the process of moving to a new building in Appleton. He said they would work very hard at getting the information to us by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. I talked to the district attorney because I really need to have him on board after he reviews their reports about our actions to make sure that we did everything right and that these officers can go back to work and do the job that they're supposed to be doing. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Okay, we need an approval of the agenda. Motion by Betty, second by Crawford. Larry Crawford. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then approval of the minutes of the July 16th, 2013 monthly meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Waddell, second by Eckstein. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have no old business, and under new business, we will start with reports. And our first report is going to be by Mr. CEO Paul Stelter of the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board, and he's going to give us an update. Deb and I have had the pleasure of meeting Paul before, and I'm sure he will give you an excellent report.
Thank you. And it's my pleasure to be here in front of you tonight. As Donna said, she serves as one of our local elected officials, and Deb is on our board of directors for the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board. We are a resource for employers who are looking for employees and for individuals who are looking to become those employees. We're a private, not-for-profit organization that was created as a result of some federal legislation back in 1998 called the Workforce Investment Act. And the funding that comes to us comes through the Department of Labor, is filtered down through the state, and allocated to us based on a formula, primarily looking at the population and the unemployment rates of the areas that we serve. In the relatively brief time that I've been CEO of the organization, I joined at the beginning of the year, this has been the philosophy that we've used to guide ourselves, and that is basically that no one person's got all the answers, but if we connect with the right people, people who have the talent, the know-how, and have access to the opportunities, we're more likely to find the solutions and the best solutions for ourselves. We serve a 6-county area: Calumet, Fond du Lac, Green Lake, Wapaka, Waushara, and Winnebago. And our function, or the reasons we exist, is to develop linkages with employers, to promote participation by private sector employers in the programs that we're responsible for. And then we have a board of directors that also then assures that we're effective in providing these services to individuals and to employers. We put together a workforce development plan every year, and we update it on a regular basis that looks at what's going on in our 6 counties. What are the big trends in employment, in demographics? What are the needs that we need to be addressing? And if you've been to any of our job centers, the one here in Wautoma, Wapaka, Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, Menasha, and in Berlin, we're responsible for running those job centers. We partner with different agencies that are in place, but we have the overall responsibility for managing those job centers. So we select those operators, we approve the training programs and the providers for them, and we also approve the providers for the adult dislocated worker and youth programs that we run. And the very last item on there, negotiating the local performance standards, we work with the state to identify what are the measures of performance that they're going to be measuring us against. Here you can see the structure of the organization. At the very top are the local elected officials. There's a board of 6 local elected officials, meaning the top local elected official from each one of the 6 counties that we serve. Below that is a 31-person board of directors, myself, and then the rest of our staff. We're a relatively small staff for the size of organization and the number of people that we touch. The LEOs, or local elected officials, people like Board Chair Collada, they are the grant recipient. The money that I mentioned earlier that comes from the feds down to the state actually flows through the counties. And they have the responsibility of approving our local workforce development budget every year. They provide comprehensive oversight of our activities, and then obviously they're there to make sure that we're operating effectively in meeting the needs of the 6 counties that we're serving. The board members themselves, the majority of them have to be from the private sector. Our charter ensures that. So while we have representatives from different agencies and organizations that may be part of our partnerships, we also have to have 50% plus 1 member from the private sector to make sure that we're truly engaging the employers. Ideally, what we're looking for in people who serve on our board are people who have some policy making or hiring authority for the organizations that they're part of. And we're looking for people who are big thinkers, community leaders, people who can help us grow and develop as an organization. People who are interested in looking at some of those broad trends in workforce development that are out there to make sure that the good jobs that we need are being developed and that the people are developing the skills to fill those so that we can have a good, solid economy. The workforce boards are intended to operate at that higher strategic level, not necessarily at the programs or operations level. That's the role of myself and our staff, and I brought Kim Lemieux, one of the folks who works with me, and Kim is responsible for a lot of the operational aspects of the WIA, or Workforce Investment Act programs. And all of our board members are in turn appointed by their local elected official. So people who serve on our board from Waushara County have been approved by your board chair. Same thing in Fond du Lac County, same thing in Calumet County and all the other 6 counties. Now this may be a little tough to read because the numbers get to be pretty small to get everything up on here. But what this chart shows is how the money flows from the feds through the state, and then in the lower left-hand corner down to each one of the workforce development areas. So starting at the very top, the Department of Labor allocates money to the state of Wisconsin. And you can see right at the very beginning, the feds take off 20% in the upper right-hand corner. That's called the 20% Federal Dislocated Worker Funds. That's money that the feds hold back for any national emergency grants. So recently we've heard a lot of activity going on in Oshkosh because of the downsizing at Oshkosh Corporation. Money that we're anticipating getting, that we're writing grants for from the federal government to help support the services for those people would be coming out of that 20% set aside that was pulled off at the very beginning. The remaining money comes down to the states. And in the case of Wisconsin, there's $15 million that was set aside for dislocated workers, another $10.5 million for adults or disadvantaged adults who are in the workforce, and then another $12 million that was set aside for youth programs. That goes to the state of Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, the green box right in the middle, and they in turn hold back some of the money for statewide activities, and the remaining money, the portion on the left-hand side, gets divvied up among the 11 workforce development boards across the state of Wisconsin Fox Valley being the fourth one down on the left-hand side there. So our total allocation, and this is year-old data, we don't have the full numbers for all the workforce boards for the current year, was roughly $2.75 million. That was reinvested. It's all federal money that's coming to us and reinvested back in the workforce in our 6-county area here. And here what we've done is we've now taken that and broken it up in terms of how that money is allocated within our 6-county area. And unlike the last slide, which was for the previous year, here what I've been able to do is use current numbers. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. So on the left-hand side is the money that was flowing through that chart for the Workforce Investment Act, or WIA funding. And you can see how much of it, $600,000 is for adults, roughly $750,000 for dislocated worker programs, another $750,000 roughly for youth programs. NEG is National Emergency Grant. Right now we know for sure that we'll be getting $82 million, or $82,000 I should say, of money from the feds for national emergency grants. And then SRR is state rapid response money. And again, this is to help us cover expenses for needs that might otherwise swamp us. And state rapid response means that that money's coming from the state. The right-hand side of the chart, other funding, is other programs that we run that aren't covered by WIA. There's a program that we run with the Department of Corrections to provide assistance to people who are nearing the end of their prison term, to get help in finding a job and then staying with them after they're out of prison, to increase their chances that they actually land a job, become employed, and are less likely to go back into prison. The statistics, the numbers that we have that show the effectiveness of this is just phenomenal, to the point where all we need to do is save one person from going back, and we've more than paid for the annual cost of it. And in fact, the numbers show that we're probably saving a good 9 to 10 people a year from going back into prison. Disability Navigator is a program to help people who have disabilities, severe disabilities, in their attempt to find a job, in their efforts to find a job. Skills Wisconsin is a program to help us reach out to employers. Title V is a program for senior citizens, people who are over age 55 and who have difficulties in landing a job, to provide alternate sources of employment for them. And then finally, the H-1B Care Grant program is a program for the healthcare industry to provide on-the-job training funds for selected medical professions. Okay. At the job centers for employers, we provide a number of different programs for them, assisting primarily with their recruiting efforts. And this goes on at all 6 of the job centers. Collecting applications, screening applicants, making room for recruitment, sharing postings. We run a labor law clinic. We can run job fairs for employers. And we also provide labor market information to job seekers and employers. Tremendous amount of information, detailed information that can be helpful for people who are either looking for talent or looking to find a job. For individuals who walk into the job center, they'll find help in conducting a job search. They'll get assistance in their career planning, get training on computer basics, help with putting together their resume, cover letter, and other things that they need for their job search. And they can also tap into education and training opportunities there. This graphic kind of shows how that all comes together. Under the WIA Act, it even talks about things that are core services, meaning that they're core to the program. Intense services, which tend to be more one-on-one type things, face-to-face service in the resource room or workshops that a person might attend, and then finally training services that are available as well. The 6 job centers that I had mentioned earlier including the one here in Watoma. And again, this might be a little bit of an eye chart, but it shows the activity in the resource rooms, which is the main entrance, the main room that's somebody coming into the job center. For the program year that just ended on June 30th of 2013, for all 12 months, how many total visits were there for each one of the centers? How many were new visits? In other words, somebody showing up for the first time. How many of those people were vets? Were there any eligible spouses of vets? How many people were coming in to use the Wisconsin Job Center or use the internet or job service online? Came in for help with their resume or cover letter, for any of the tutorials, do any career exploration, tap into some of the DVDs and videos that are available to them, reference books, and so forth. So that gives us a real good picture, and if I look at the numbers for this year compared to last year, the numbers are up pretty much across the board in all the categories. That people are getting interested, if they haven't been in looking for a job, to really tapping in and using the services that are there. In addition to that, we also do some things that we call business services, which is reaching out to employers to promote the job centers, to do some work and work closely with the folks in economic development to make sure that as employers are looking to move to the area or organizations are looking to expand in the area, that we're there to help them find the talent that they need. We work with a group out of Green Bay and the Appleton Fox Cities area called New Manufacturing Alliance, which is an alliance, as it says, of manufacturers to really promote manufacturing as a career for young folks. We run a Career Changers Network, which is geared for more professional people who may be looking on a job search. And as I mentioned earlier, we also get involved quite heavily in job fair planning. And then if you wanted to get into a little bit more detail, here's some specific on each one of the programs that we run. Under the WIA, or Workforce Investment Act, the dislocated worker and adult programs are geared for people who are age 18 or over, who are either have income eligibility or have been laid off from their job or are facing a planned closing. Okay. The services that are available to them. And while we don't do the work ourselves, as I mentioned earlier, we manage and oversee it. We contract with, in our case here, AdvoCamp and the LETC to provide those services to people. They have the staff who are out there on the front lines day in and day out meeting with folks. Last year we served 197 adults and 600 dislocated workers, and those are in one-on-one relationships. That's not counting the folks that come into the job center just to update their resume or work on something on their own. The youth program is geared to, as it says, there are people who are 14 to 21 who have little or no income and face significant barriers to achieving employment and education. This is to help kids who might not otherwise have the resources to go out and find a job, get a jump start in entering the work world. And it can be providing them help in finishing up their high school education, encouraging them to get some post-high school training, help them in figuring out what their career goals might be, and assisting them in getting unpaid or other work experience so that they can start building a resume, building a job application, and being successful in the job search. And again, we contract in this case with AdvoCamp and CISA 5. And as you can see, in total we served nearly 150 youths last year. The Disability Employment Initiative grant, or the Disability Navigator that I mentioned earlier, we assisted 214 people last year that have gotten help from us through the job centers. One of the things that you may be aware of with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, they have a wait list, and it sometimes takes a while for people to get in and get DVR services. With this program, individuals can get a jump start, start getting some services, and then once their wait time with DVR is up, they'll be able to fall right into that. In the H-1B, that program for healthcare professionals, we just started that last year. We're one of only 3 workforce boards in the state that were part of that grant. We've got 10 employers participating in it, and we've got 52 people currently on the job getting trained, people who might not otherwise be working today. And 12 of them have already exited, meaning that they finished up their training program and they're now employed. That Title V, or Wisconsin Senior Employment Program, as I mentioned earlier, geared for people age 55 and older. They need to be Wisconsin resident. And it's essentially for people who are age 55 or older, senior individuals, who may be struggling trying to find a job because their skills are no longer current, or perhaps they're not looking for full-time work, they're looking for something part-time. And finally, the Windows to Work program is that program with the Department of Corrections. Brent Sanderfoot, the individual who is responsible for that, goes into the prisons, meets with people. He only works with people who are coming back to one of our 6 counties. So while his work is primarily at Oshkosh and at Fox Lake, he's only working with people who are coming back to our 6 counties. Starts with them before they leave and then stays with them. One of the key advantages of this program is somebody's leaving prison. They know the guards. They know the guidance people that they have in prison. When they leave prison, they never see them again. They get turned over to parole officer. Brent is the one constant individual through the process, through the transition for them. And then finally, again, just to repeat what I said earlier, no one person has all the answers of how to connect talent, know-how, and opportunities, but connecting the people who work with these every day will help lead us to the best solutions. And then in closing, I've got just a quick list here of all the folks who are on our board of directors. I mentioned the second one up on the list there is Deb Beringer. And there's another, the list goes on quite a bit. You can see we have CEOs and presidents from organizations, HR directors, just a wide group of people. And we're always looking for individuals who are interested in workforce development issues, care enough about their communities, willing to invest a few hours every quarter to attend a board meeting and offer their insights and perspectives. And then finally, our local elected officials. Thank you for your time.
Paul, I do have a question. The Department of Corrections, do you do any of that in county jails? Any of that kind of connection in county jails?
Not at the present time. It's all with the state program because it's funded by the State Department of Corrections. Good question.
Questions? How often is the job center open here in Wautoma? Do you remember?
Watoma's open, I believe, 2 or 3 days a week. Yeah. Oshkosh, Menasha, Fond du Lac are open 5 days a week. The other 3 centers are open 2 or 3 days a week. We made a conscious decision a few years back that while the activity at the outlying centers wasn't as significant as it was in the 3 big ones, we did not want to just close up Wapaka, Berlin, and Watoma. So rather than closing them, we decided to scale them back to a lesser hours.
With the Affordable Health Care Act coming into place soon, do you see a trend in there being more medical positions open, that training will be needed?
Yeah, in fact, if you look at what H-1B healthcare program is all about, it's really to address the need that we were, as a country, we're starting to bring in medical professionals from other countries. And H-1B actually refers to a visa designation. And the money comes on the basis that it's intended to train U.S. citizens and people who are already here to fill jobs that otherwise might have gone to somebody from overseas. Now, Are we hiring many people from overseas to come and work in Waushara County? Probably not. But the folks that we can get trained to fill the positions here helps with those positions that might otherwise need to be filled in Milwaukee or Chicago. That the folks, that if we can train and hire people locally here, they're less likely to end up going to Milwaukee and Chicago. And as a result, they can pull upon their own talent. And it's less of a need to bring people in from other countries. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Have a safe trip back. Watch out for next we will have Brian Cotier from EMS. He will do the EMS annual report.
I kept this kind of short. It's 2012. Obviously I came in last year in September, so we're just going to kind of hit on some of the highlights of the 2012 report. Last year we did run 2,660 calls. It's about a 4% increase from 2011. Break that down, there was 2,034 911 calls and 626 transfers. The transfers picked up sometime in 2011 with the acquisition of Mountain View Hospital, Adams County. We were doing that up until about June of this year, so we're doing all their transfers. Our coverage area is quite large, 790 square miles, and as you all know, we do cover parts of Adams and Marquette County under contract. Just to show you, compared to the last slide, in 2011 we did 2556 for calls. Again, there's 104 additional calls, 100 additional transfers. That was probably mostly the Mountain View Hospital in Adams County, with just an increase of 4 additional 911 calls last year. Break that down, Wautoma did the most calls, Med 1 and Med 2 last year, Med 5 in the Poughkeepsie area, Med 6 in the west end of the county. Then Med 3 and Med 4, the reserve trucks, that would be staffed by an additional unit being put on, office staff, off-duty personnel for larger calls or something. So I broke down the mileage driven to. You'll see an increase in the mileage. Total miles driven last year was 191,920 miles, almost 192,000 miles. That's an increase of about 18,500 miles from the year before. As I stated, most of them were the transfers out of out of Adams County, out of Mountain View, and the average is about 177, 178 miles per call for the additional calls from the year before. So it puts a lot of miles on the trucks. It increases our fuel, our maintenance on the trucks. Just a quick sample of the type of calls. We did 253 difficulty breathing calls last year. 215 chest pain calls. That was just strictly with the designation of chest pain. No other cardiac issues were listed in this one. So we got a fair amount of unconscious, syncope, dizziness calls. Trauma, I bulked all the trauma calls together, 421. That includes the 11 fatalities we ran last year, which is a lot for the small community. Trauma can be listed anywhere from a cut finger to a crushing injury, but it was a fair amount of calls last year too. So how do we end our year last year? We put about another $129,000 on undesignated account. We exceeded our projected income last year by about $400,000. Those transfers really add up to a bulk of the income, which obviously we had to increase our mandatory write-offs to about $153,000 due to Medicare, Medicaid, and stuff like that. And also we had an increased fuel and maintenance, which was quite extensive last year, which really went over our budget on maintenance of the vehicles. So. What do we do? Community CPR. We offer it every third Wednesday at the station, 1 o'clock. We do it every month. We do teach in schools, and we teach in local businesses as requested. We did issue 932 CPR cards last year. Some of those are new people being trained in CPR. Some of those are refreshers. That's still quite a good number for people in this community to be trained. Which that rolls right into the next slide, which is the AED program. Most of you should be familiar with the AED program that we do have. We do currently have 140 public AEDs in buildings. Any organization that doesn't want to put an AED in, they can purchase it from us for half the cost. We cover the other half of the cost. We cover the maintenance of the machines. We go out every year, we service them, we check the batteries, we'll replace pads as they expire. We also provide CPR to their staff for the initial time when we put it on. That helps get obviously the AEDs out there in the public buildings. In a rural community, it's real important to have the AEDs out there if someone's heart should stop. Trainings. We did a lot of refresher trainings last year. We total of 43 of the first responders in the communities. We put through first responder refresher training. Did 27 EMTs, advanced EMTs. Most of them were our staff. There was some on the fire departments that went through our refresher program. And then we also recertified 20 paramedics last year. So that's a fair amount of training that goes on. They changed the regulations for this year for training, so it's going to be a little more difficult to reach those numbers. We're able to lump the EMTs and the first responders together and then just do an additional portion for the EMTs, but the state's changed that. So Jeremy's getting ready to start up the next round of first responder training, actually, at 3 of the fire departments. The Project Lifesaver is the other program that we run. About 20 individuals in the community that I put on this. If you're not familiar with Project Lifesaver, it's a fantastic program. We do offer it free to the residents of this county. If someone has a tendency to wander off, whether it be dementia or some other disability, we put them on it's basically a radio frequency tracking device. They wear a bracelet. If they do wander off, we have the equipment there to search for them. Typically when people wander off within the first 24 hours, 50% are dead. And with this type of equipment, the average is about 30 minutes you can find the person. So it's a wonderful tool to have in this community. There's plenty of areas for them to hide too in these woods here. Then special events, we do football standbys. Those are just starting up. Obviously the county fair, EMS week every year we visit all the elementary schools in the county. We visit all the kids. We have the fun fair at the office across the street. We saw about 200 kids each year. We'll cover the grass drags, off-road racing, pretty much any other type of standby that they would request. If there's going to be a large group of people there, we'll try to have a truck there, because obviously to be there for an emergency when it happens. So this slide is just a picture from the fun fair. We had a junior EMT station set up. These kids were able to go through, see the equipment, get backboarded. I know we backboarded a few kids that day. Show them the equipment. Show them that we're not scary. You know, when an emergency happens, the kids are scared. They're afraid of what's going on. You have firefighters, police officers, EMTs coming to the house. I know when my niece was little, she went through something like this, and my sister got into a car accident. It really helped a lot. So it's real important for the kids to see the equipment and get to know us and not to be scared when we pull up. So. And lastly, last year we upgraded the critical care license to the critical care license, the new designation by the state. This department made the decision to go ahead and train our paramedics. We currently have most of the paramedics through, probably 8 out of the 12 are 9 out of 12 or 13 that are through the critical care program. It's a 3 to 4 month program. Pretty much it's mostly online. They do have to go for a couple skills days down in Madison. It's basically upgraded skills. It's important for the transfers that we do for Wild Rose. There's a lot of specialty skills that the hospitals do that our medics are able to take now and transport. In past, you'd have to have a nurse go with you or something, which puts a strain on the hospitals too. It's also an increased revenue source for us too, but it's a very good service to offer this community. So I think that's pretty much all I have. Any questions? Yes. The AED, Pete, you know?
Our cost is about $1,000, so we're billing out at $500 to
and then we also have a case that will go in that we sell them at regular cost. We don't give them any deal on that, but this gets AEDs out in the community. So yeah, it's worth about $1,000, and we charge about $500 for.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Okay, now I think we have a tag team coming up here, and that's the Human Services Department Annual Report. And first is Director Glenn Johnson.
Glenn and I are going to switch places. She wants to run the equipment.
I'm trouble now.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to try to get through this real quick. I'm pleased to report that and proud that our management team is here for DHS. Besides the great work and hard work a lot of our staff do, I can tell you all of them sitting there tonight do a lot of the heavy lifting. And they keep me in line. So, those of you who serve on our board know that I always do a words of wisdom. So I have something real quick, and I can assure you that this one is safe. If you'll listen.
Let's play a game of Who Am I? Listen very carefully to the clues. I was born in one country, but raised in another country. My father was born in yet another country. I was not his only child. He fathered several children with numerous women. I became very close to my mother, as my father showed no interest in me. My mother died at an early age from cancer. Although my father deserted me and my mother raised me, I later wrote a book idolizing my father, not my mother. Later in life, questions arose over my real name. My birth records were sketchy. No one was able to produce a legitimate, reliable birth certificate. I grew up practicing one faith, but then converted to Christianity, as it was widely accepted in my new country. I wrote a book about my struggles growing up. It was clear to those who read my memoirs that I had difficulties accepting that my father abandoned me as a child. I became active in local politics when I was in my 30s. Then, with help behind the scenes, I literally burst onto the world scene as a candidate for national office in my 40s. They said I had a golden tongue and I could talk anyone into anything. I had a virtually non-existent resume, little work history, and no experience in leading a single organization. Yet I was a powerful speaker, and citizens were drawn to me as though I were a magnet. I drew incredibly large crowds during my public appearances. This bolstered my ego. At first, my political campaign focused on my country's foreign policy. I was very critical of my country in the last war and seized every opportunity to bash my country. But what launched my rise to national prominence were my views on the country's economy. I called my campaign a people's campaign. I was the surprise candidate because I emerged from outside the traditional path of politics and I was able to gain widespread popular support. I knew that if I merely offered the people hope, together we could change our country and the world. So I started to make my speeches sound like they were on behalf of the downtrodden, the poor, the ignorant, to include persecuted minorities. My true views were not widely known, and I kept them unknown until after I became my nation's leader. I had to carefully guard reality, as anybody could have easily found out what I really believed if they had simply read my writings and examined those people that I associated with. I'm glad they didn't do it, because then I became the most powerful man in the world. And then the world learned the truth. Who am I? I am Adolf Hitler. If you were thinking of someone else, you should be afraid. Very afraid.
I hope you found that interesting and shocking as we did, or I did. Words of wisdom. So let's get started here. You might look at that picture with the cute dog with the stick and ask, what does that have to do with Department of Human Services? And actually not a whole lot, other than I thought it was a cool picture. But the idea of boredom, I can assure you we're never bored. As you can read, our world is very fast-paced. I don't know of a time myself where things slow down. We do know with certainty that the work we do each day, there's a variety of factors that impact the people we deal with, and obviously poverty, unemployment, substance abuse, mental illness, abuse, neglect, to mention a few. We do continue to see a trend in our world, meaning human services, that the demand for services, for the most part, don't stop. If anything, they continue to remain steady, if not increasing. And much of this has to do with alcohol and drug-related issues in this county. Most of you know that much of the work we do is mandated by federal or state statutes, and we continual fight with the state about unfunded mandates, which you've heard us say many times. I like that photo too, and it depicts that any given day we could easily react to the multiple issues that are going on, whether it be with abuse or neglect of children, all the way up to drug and alcohol issues or dealing with some elderly issues. But I'm proud to say that our management team, along with their staff, they really approach each of these challenges and issues day to day very methodically in a very determined manner. And we try to teach each other and help each other to not react, but we have challenges to deal with, and we'll deal with them, and we make adjustments when needed. So let's go ahead and begin the details of the Department of Human Services. And I believe the first one up, and they'll introduce themselves as well, is, well, no, before I get to her, I wanted to mention the Department of Human Services is comprised of a very diverse group of professionals. I mean that in a good way because it is very diverse, both in gender as well as backgrounds, which I think allows us to really serve a diverse population. And the first one up, child and family.
Hi. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'm Dawn Buchholz, and I supervise Child and Family Services for Waushara County. Just want to give you just a few very quick highlights. First of all, our child abuse and neglect referrals, we average about 400 a year. I've seen that that's steadily increased almost every year for the past 12 or so years. We've seen a steady increase in child abuse and neglect referrals. I just want to quickly mention that these are very complex situations. Our staff are entering homes where the families have multiple issues: mental health, alcohol and drug, parenting, poverty, disabilities of all sorts. And our staff are really being put in some dangerous situations. They have to deal with abuse from the clientele quite often, generally verbal abuse, although sometimes we have some pretty threatening behavior as well. And still, even though they're getting this verbal abuse, they still have to maintain a relationship with our clients and really try to build that relationship and engage with the families we work with so that we can protect kids, so we can serve families. And if our efforts don't work, so that we can build a case if we do have to call on Ruth to help us take that case to court and do some more formal interventions, which could include, of course, removing kids if need be. We work really closely with law enforcement. These guys behind me are great. Every time we call them up and say, hey, we need your assistance with a sexual abuse case or some egregious incident, they're right there, even though they've been extremely busy this last year. We're always looking at ways to even collaborate more and cooperation with law enforcement schools to serve our clients as best we can. Again, real quickly, we have about 11 licensed foster homes. We are always looking for foster homes, so if you know of anyone who might be interested, please send them our way. There has been a decrease a little bit in the use of foster homes because of mandates to try to use family and informal supports if we do have to place kids, but we really need foster homes still for respite, and often we have seen a decrease in the informal supports that we can use. If you think about it, some of these family systems and family issues go from generation to generation, so we do have to be careful about that. And healthy and formal supports often for our families aren't close by or aren't willing to help out at times. We have seen an increase in some of our contracted placements, which is a little concerning. We have some issues often with contracted placements. That's meaning placements outside of our county. Often they're quite expensive and they don't provide the level of service we want, or they're difficult to work with our families. So if we can limit that, that's really the best, and we're concerned when we have to use those higher cost placements that are more restrictive and don't work as well in our community for our kids and families as we'd like to. And then just real briefly, some of the trends that we're seeing in child and family services specifically. A lot of regionalization. We're really trying to work with counties close by so that we can utilize our resources to the best of our ability, collaborate on grants, get funding together, share resources, those kind of things. We work really closely with Marquette County, Green Lake County, Adams County to provide Family Resource Center network services for families such as parenting classes, and we have a shared staff with Green Lake County to do some outreach, some prevention. If we can prevent child abuse and neglect from happening in the first place, obviously that's the best. And if we can hit these families when the kids are young, the younger the better, then hopefully we won't see them in delinquency, and law enforcement hopefully won't see them when they're adults. We also are working with the state to do what's called some permanency roundtables. We're one of the first counties to have been involved with that process. We're really trying to find permanency for our kids as quickly as we can. We know that being in the system is not a good thing in general, so we're really trying to make that time as short as possible. We're also doing some intense in-home safety services with some of our 7 other counties in the state of Wisconsin, and us are in a collaboration to provide in-home intense safety services to really work with these families on weekends, after hours, and whatever service they need to try to nip some of these issues in the bud. And then finally, I guess just parting for Child and Family, we really, again, this is nothing new, you've heard this, but alcohol and drugs and those issues in our county is a very big issue. We estimate that 80% or more of the cases we see in Child and Family Services have some sort of alcohol or drug issues in the family. And again, we really give kudos to our law enforcement who has been trying to address those issues, and been working in collaboration with them to try to help those families, the people that want treatment, and then criminally get the ones that are refusing.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Lindsay.
I'm Lindsay Campbell. I'm the Juvenile Justice Supervisor for Waushare County. A little short for this mic. In 2012, we received and responded and processed 104 juvenile justice referrals. This is about 50 down from 2011, but that number is very fluid, constantly changing. Several years ago, we were in the 200s, so that could easily happen to us again. We were able to add a half-time social worker to help ease that workload a little bit. We continue to see an increase in our younger population, 7 to 12-year-olds receiving referrals on our 7 to 12-year-olds, where it's often more of a mental health issue rather than a straight-out delinquency, and our system has it's not a really great system for those kids. So we've had some challenges working with that population. Some of our highest needs and most costly families that we've been working with have moved in from other counties. We have several children and juveniles in placement right now that were in placement in other counties. They seem to be moving across counties, whether to avoid what's going on where they were or have now settled here. You've probably all heard a little bit about the proposal of returning 17-year-olds to our juvenile justice system that's in the legislature right now, and if that does occur, which there's a good likelihood, we'll definitely see an impact on our resources here in Waushare County. And recently we have also had a lot of families where parents are just saying, I don't want my child in my home anymore. So we struggle with those cases as well, and we've started to charge parents for supervision fees, placement, which we've always done, and secure detention time. In 2012, we used 289 days of secure detention, meaning 289 days we placed a juvenile in juvenile jail. This is almost cut in half from 2011, so we really are trying to limit how much time we have kids spending in secure detention. We know that research shows that's not good for kids, so we really try to keep them out of secure. And along with that, charging parents for the time that their children are spending in secure detention. Dawn also covered a lot of these statistics. I don't think there was anything that was missed, but that would be Child and Family.
And then we also talked, I think Dawn highlighted this, we do have several grants with other counties that helps fund the resources that we provide. So next up we have Comprehensive Community Services.
Hello, I'm Paul Pyle, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of Clint Starks here, who's brand new with our CCS program, Comprehensive Community Services. This is a program that just started about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and it exists for folks who have mental health or substance abuse disorders that are beyond the norm. These are disorders that are so severe as they're going to be lasting for a few years. For instance, with a kid, you might have somebody who is failing in school, getting in trouble in the community, whatever it might be. With an adult, it might be somebody who year after year isn't able to maintain work because of their problems and difficulties. And so they need some type of specialized services beyond what just a therapist could provide or a doctor could provide with medications. They need somebody who's more like a coach, someone who can help them get from point A to point B in order so that the kid who's failing in school is now actually doing their homework. The kid who doesn't know how to react when he's being teased in a community knows how to react now, knows how to make friends, knows basically how to feel better about their life. There's also a lot of kids and adults we see who come from some pretty rough homes, and theirs is a tough life, and they need some special skills that many of us didn't need just to make it from one day to the next. And that's basically what our CCS program looks like. It's also a program that's unique in that it allows us to capture a great deal of the cost of the services that we provide. And therefore, we tend to keep more people out of hospitals or high-cost placements that don't really meet their needs in the first place. In addition to that, there's a new initiative that's going on. The governor proposed it because they realized how successful Comprehensive Community Services is. So the governor proposed a new program that would actually encourage counties to bond together to form consortiums so that more counties that don't have CCS services would get those services. And we've been talking with, 6 or 8 other counties, right, something to that nature, about forming our own consortium. If we do this, the governor will, and the legislature, has set aside funds that will pay us 100% of the cost of the service, 100% versus the 60% we get now. So we're really looking at that and are excited about that. We're also excited to have Clint with us. He's a guy with a really good background, and he'll do a good job as the supervisor.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Quickly, we're going to talk you and Sue about clinical services.
He knows better. I'm Sue Szymanski, and I guess first of all, I would like to say, because of, well, Paul and I have been here the longest, probably, but in all the years I've worked for Waushara County, I've always been so proud to work for Waushara County because this board has always been so supportive of us and supportive of services for people with alcohol and drug problems, which is my area of expertise. And compared to counties probably all over the state, our county provides some of the best services, even though we're a small county and really care about getting people help. So you can read the statistics. We provide services through our own agency for young people as far as mental health and alcohol and drug counseling, and then we contract with all area counseling out on the west end of town for providing outpatient services for adults. We also fund inpatient or intensive outpatient programs for adults who need more intensive services for drug and alcohol problems and have no insurance or any way to pay for that. It's going to be interesting in the fall when the healthcare reform comes, because that may end up costing our county more money, because there may be people who are now on medical assistance who will lose it because of income limits. But it may also be a good thing, because there will be people who aren't on medical assistance now who will be eligible. And so that may make a difference, because medical assistance will pay for treatment programs, at least for alcohol and drug and mental health services. We do all the drunk driving assessments in our county. Every county is mandated to do that for people that get arrested for drunk driving. And we really try to make sure that people get treatment services, because we do know that just putting people in jail or in prison doesn't stop people or help people from making those mistakes again, that their addiction needs to be treated. We work really closely with those guys in the back, the sheriff's department, and the public health department to try to provide more information. Maybe you can go to the next slide about trends, Glenn, but I'm sure all of you are aware, you've been hearing a lot about heroin and about opiate addiction. This is on the rise throughout the state, not just here in Waushara County, but sometimes it's easy to think we're in a rural area and this won't happen here. And as you are all aware, it has happened here, it is happening here, and we're working real closely with the schools to do prevention programs with public health and with the sheriff's department. We're also trying to provide more treatment for people with heroin or opiate problems. Heroin has really changed over the years, and now people don't have to shoot up heroin with a needle anymore, which is making it much easier, I think, for people who are already addicted to opiate medications, which are pain medications, which are oftentimes overprescribed by doctors and dentists, and people begin to get addicted to it, and when they can't get that anymore, the doctor cuts them off, they'll switch to heroin because it's much cheaper, and it's actually easier to get. So this can happen to any one of us. So I, again, just want to say thank you so much for your support over the years, and we'll continue to try and provide services for people here in this county to give them the help that they deserve. Questions?
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, we'll do questions at the end. All right, Crisis, Wade.
Crisis intervention and adult protective services. When you're ready to pull your hair out, when you don't know where to turn, you turn to us. From January through December of last year, we responded to 851 calls that required us to either open a file or a case. We're the ones who law enforcement will call. We'll get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Wade, are you on call tonight? Yes. Can you come in? We've got someone who's threatening suicide. Will you come in? Will you assess them? Wade, will you come in? Kevin, will you come in? We've got a young person who ran away from their home. They're threatening suicide if we put them back in their home. I understand that you folks take care of adults who are in need of protective services. We need somebody who will help with a guardianship. We need somebody who will do a safety check. We need somebody who will go and visit my mother, see how she's doing, or our parents. On staff, we have myself as supervisor. I've got a lead social worker, a psychotherapist, and 2 other social workers with dozens and dozens of years of experience. Before I came to work for the county, I worked over at All Area Counseling on the edge of town. And the reason why I came over is because I liked what I saw with the county system. I liked the way that they were working together with us. Once a month, I had the opportunity to work with the crisis team, and we consulted cases and we tried to make things better for our clients, and I believe that we have. Last month, every month we follow numbers to find out how many did we keep from, how many did we divert from being hospitalized, and how many actually had to be hospitalized. In the month of June, we had 16 who were diverted from hospitalization. In the month of July, we had 6 who were diverted from hospitalization. We took care of them, we helped them to de-escalate and feel safe and secure. After hours, we help with, we have basically three hats that we wear: juvenile justice, as well as adult protective services, and then, of course, mental health services as well. We do notice that, if you want to go to the next one, as far as trends, we are rebuilding our team. I'm a new supervisor with the crisis team. We've got a lead worker. We've got 2 new people who are on, who have, between the 2 of them, 33 years of experience, and the reason why they wanted to come here is because they heard about our county and they heard about the crisis team, the very reason why I joined. We have noticed that there seems to be more and more drug involvement along with mental health. And we do what we can. We continue to train. We continue to be more collaborative. We continue to receive calls from Dave and others in the county, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kate.
Hello, I'm Kate Surprise, and I currently am the Economic Support Manager. We have 5 staff that do eligibility determinations for food share services, for medical assistance, for child care eligibility, for help with people to pay Medicare premiums. We also provide emergency assistance. We are the place in the community that gets the Salvation Army money. Many of you may or may not know that approximately 85% of the money that is collected in the Red Kettle campaign does stay in Waushara County. We do the intake for those funds right in our office. We also have other funds that we get on occasion from the federal government, and we do some coordination, even doing some intake for some Waupaca County residents for that. We are part of a 10-county consortia. I'm sure you keep hearing the word consortia. That's definitely, the wave of the future. We're working with a number of our neighboring communities to work together. You may recall a couple years ago, the governor looked to privatize all of the public assistance programs in the state, but as an alternative, it was agreed that 10 consortia would form in the county, or in the state, of which we're part of a 10-county consortia. You can see the numbers, or the names of those counties down at the bottom. We are the second largest consortia in the state. The next slide, if you look at trends, you've heard people talk about the affordable health care. That will have a tremendous impact on the business that we do. Starting in September, really ramping up between October of this year and March of next year. We are, because the state of Wisconsin has elected to go with the federally facilitated marketplace, we are looking at how we will, as a community, focus or connect people to this marketplace. They're also going to be in change in how we look at eligibility, going to more of a tax-based eligibility process. It is estimated that we're going to be serving an additional 39,000 more people in our 10-county consortia. Currently, we offer a call center where we take anywhere from 800 to 1,200 calls a day. They're staffed by workers in our 10 counties. It is estimated that we'll get 30,000 more calls between October and December of this year. So that is one of the reasons that we're looking at later in the agenda of adding staff. There's some pretty substantial money coming to us from the state of Wisconsin to assist in this process. So we continue to prepare for that because it's coming quickly.
Very good, thanks. Paul, you're going to do that quickly? Can you pull that mic down? Because I'm having a hard time hearing myself.
All right. Many years ago, folks heard about Mendota Mental Health Institute, Winnebago Mental Health Institute, and these were the places that folks with very severe and chronic, persistent mental illness would go, and many of them would spend their whole life there. They would just not get better. As medications improved and as understanding of how to treat these types of conditions improved, we were able to bring out most of these individuals out of the institutes and back into the communities. However, for many of these individuals, their schizophrenia or their bipolar disorder was so severe as to make it very, very difficult for them to function in the world. Back in the 70s, we took a look back and we found out that we were funding, Waushara County was funding anywhere from a low of 269 days to a high of 1,000 days in Winnebago Mental Health Institute at a tune of what is today $1,000 per day, inflation adjusted. So in other words, that $1,000 or that 1,000-day year would cost us in today's dollars $1 million. And it didn't help people get better. Today, our CSP program works with those individuals with these chronic mental disorders to live in the community. They're our neighbors. They're functioning very well. They're on medications. Occasionally, they have a problem. Our workers work with them and help them basically to navigate through issues with their landlords or their finances, whatever it might be, their medications. So that's our CSP program. It's an enormously successful program. It's been around for years, and Clint has also taken over that program as well.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, Brenda.
I'm Brenda Ruby. I'm the manager at Financial Unit. The Financial Unit.
Thank you.
The Financial Unit consists of the finance assistant and 2 account clerks. Together we have many, many duties to keep the financial operations of the agency running smoothly most of the time. The financial unit conducts all the billing and collection activities for all of our billable programs. We're always striving to maximize our revenue, always trying to stay updated on the new guidelines because everything is constantly changing. Staff are responsible for all accounts payable and accounts receivable functions, as well as reconciling with the county financial system. We process all the rep payee checks, juvenile restitution, foster care and kinship care payments for children in out-of-home placement. We're responsible for units and cost reporting to the state. Our unit compiles all the state reports and reconciliations. Many of them are on an annual basis, and there are many. And then, but several of them are also monthly. And it's important for us to be accurate and get all these in on time because it's necessary to receive our state and federal funding. We're also responsible for developing and monitoring the agency annual budget as well as the grant funding. And the year-end budget and fiscal reports are very important. And we are a fiscal agent for the 4-county ADRC consortium. In short, this means we receive all the ADRC funding and disperse to the other counties based on their expenditures. We're very fortunate to have a very knowledgeable and efficient fiscal staff. We appreciate very much for their hard work and team effort in keeping the business operations running smoothly. It seems that what one doesn't know, the other one does, and they work together very well, assisting each other as a team. Some of the trends, Glenn stated there about the updated software program. Currently, we utilize a WSIS software program with GIT. That is a data collection and financial program. It does, it interfaces with the state, excuse me, with the county financial system, the state SACWIS program, and the state PPS program. We're moving in the direction of expanding this software to encompass our clinical billing activities, which will enable us to use one system to interface with all the programs. Right now we have a separate system for all of our billing procedures, so hopefully we'll be moving forward with this. And of course, like Glenn says, staying current with state and federal requirements, which is a constant change, continued challenges with decreased state and federal funding, while we continue to provide services while staying in budget is always a challenge. We also see a trend towards moving more towards, like Kate had mentioned, towards consortiums and regionalization. Sometimes there's financial incentives that they offer to move in that direction. So there's always a lot of changes going on in the financial unit. So thank you.
Brenda, we did not list our revenue in that in this report, but in the last 10 years, we've been able to control costs, but also produce revenue. And our reserve account is somewhere in 1 point something.
$1.5 million, something like that.
So financially, the department continues to be in good shape, largely due to good management and work that people do. Thank you. Kate, can we quickly do that?
Sure, I'm back again. Kate Surprise again. With the retirement of our long-term support manager in July, I was able to become re-involved in the long-term support unit, which is really exciting. I spent my first 19 years there. So there are still some staff that remain in long-term support. With, a lot of changes occurred 5 years ago with the start of family care. We do still have some staff that do rep payee services, which means that we are appointed by, I talk loud, but that's okay. We are appointed by Social Security to manage individual Social Security checks, and so we pay their bills basically for them. So we have some staff that do that. We also do some contracted services for Care Wisconsin. We have workers that will go out and do some daily living skills training, teaching them how to shop, how to clean, how to prepare meals, doing that with them or for them. They also will accompany some individuals to doctor's appointments and then share that information back with the Care Wisconsin care managers. They are also involved in the community support program, which Paul spoke about. They're assisting individuals with chronic mental illness living in the community. And we also work intimately with our Aging and Disability Resource Center. We have a social worker who 100% of her job now is to work, do services for the Aging and Disability Resource Center, going out into the home, helping people connect to services. Trends, we have a new care management organization that has moved into Waushara County, which their new name is Continuous. And the Aging and Disability Resource Center will be involved in helping people enroll into this managed care organization as we continue to get information. And it says biggest new challenges is really now coordinating amongst new options that people have in our community.
Thank you. So in closing, I know this has been a long presentation. We tried to keep it short. Garfield's pretty cool there, but I'm going to skip that one. But we'll end on pretty much highlighting that the collaboration and support from all the county programs are critical for the work we do. We do have to thank Deb Behringer's office herself and her staff because they really do support us in many ways. Also, we mentioned before, special thanks to the Sheriff's Department and their officers have been wonderful. Ruth and the Corp Council folks, Health Department, our DHS board. I know Randy Gramsey and his people have been very supportive of our needs in our buildings. And of course, again, all of you county board supervisors, we appreciate your support. And we thank you very much for your patience to listen to us tonight. And any questions? Beautiful, thank you.
It's a fantastic report. Thank you very much. We'll move on to discussion and possible action item. Adjusting the administrative assistant wages for performing payroll duties. And Deb, you will address that.
Oh, sure. Happy to. We had the payroll coordinator took a lengthy family medical leave, and we process about 350 checks every other week. So that process, we weren't able to defer that or stop doing any of that work. Michelle Olson works in my office, and she really stepped up to the plate to keep that activity going and make sure that that work continued. And I don't really have a mechanism in place to pay someone extra for doing that kind of work, and that's what we're asking. is it that we could make an adjustment to her wage for that time frame? So that's what I'm asking.
Idea what you want to offer her?
What's that? It was $2. It was $2 an hour for hours worked.
I make a motion that we adopt this motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Krantz, second by Mr. Eckstein. Is there any other discussion or questions? All right, Ruth tells me we need a roll call vote.
Okay, Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Wadle,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Mrs. Krantz. Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Tim.
Yes.
Mr. Piaski.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Plata.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, please tell Michelle we thank her for filling in. Okay, now we have consideration and possible action on the following resolutions.
All right, resolution number 31-08-13, resolution authorizing full-time account clerk position for the crisis unit.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the resolution.
Motion by Weddy,
Second.
second by Mr. Jones. Is there any discussion? All right, this will also need a roll call vote, won't it?
Mr. Wadle.
Yes.
Mr. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yep.
Mrs. Krantz.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Tim.
Yes.
Mr. Piaski.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Plata.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
All right, next we have a resolution number 320813.
Resolution authorizing full-time economic support specialist position.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would move to approve the resolution.
Motion by Weddy, second by Mr. Tim. Are there any questions? All right, this will also need a roll call vote.
Mr. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Mrs. Krantz.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Tim.
Yes.
Mr. Piaski.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Plata.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Wadle.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have resolutions. That probably all has to do with that great report we got, right?
Yeah. No questions,
All
right?
those, no questions. Taken care of.
Resolution number 33-8-13, resolution authorizing the construction of a Hancock EMS station.
Move to approve the resolution.
Motion by Jones, second by Mr. Kirschner. Are there any questions? Randy is here, and also Brian, if you have any questions concerning the station. Bob?
Not really a question, just a statement. We've been under, I guess, at least I have criticism for eliminating the one ambulance. How can we justify taking that out of service for a month at least and putting up a new building for $150,000 to $200,000?
Brian?
Actually, what I was doing with the ambulance, just so you know, and I apologize for not sending an email to everybody, I should have. What I've actually done is looking at the numbers, that's the slowest time of the night for the crews. So I moved that paramedic onto an intercept vehicle and reduced that ambulance from 11 to 7 in the morning. We still have the ability to get a fourth ambulance up pretty quickly. I live close, we have off-duty people that live close. As of the day is today, that unit hasn't even run a call yet. The ambulance station in the west end of the county, that would stabilize the entire west end as far as response times and better serve the public on the west side. Never failed, we always have critical calls in Plainfield or Oklahoma or vice versa. Being in Hancock will just, reduce response times to the entire west end of the county, stabilize that west end area.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do you have any questions of Randy? concerning the building. Yes.
This will be put up for bids eventually?
Yes, we do. Doesn't Bill Ruder take care of that?
Well, he will, but if this is approved by his county board, I think Public Works then will go ahead with hiring an architect.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, this will also be a roll call vote.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Mrs. Krentz.
A whole lot of money, but if we think we have it, yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Tim.
Yes.
Mr. Piaski.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Plata.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Wadle.
No.
Mr. Crawford.
Yes.
Next, we have resolution number 34-08-13.
Resolution authorizing transfer of funds from general fund to sheriff's office budget for the purchase of 2 marked squads.
Motion by Kirschner to approve, I assume. Second by Mr. Jones. Do we have any questions or comments?
This is just an updated mileage sheet that they passed out because the other one was hard to read or.
One question I have, I asked this of Dave before and he wasn't quite sure about it. Were any of these 2 squads that were injured during the incident last week, those 2 that have the most mileage on them?
Yes.
You got lucky on that one, huh?
Well, I was still gonna repair it, because we'd like to sell it. And it's gonna be, it's one of those, that, you know, if we get over beyond 160,000 miles, the value goes down rapidly. In a year that.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'd just like to comment that, I've said it before when we bought the squad cars and did some things outside of our regular budgeting system, that we should strive to put these things into our budget and not have to make decisions like this during the year.
And I think they were budgeted for, but they were taken out of the budget, you know, to make it balance, to make it work. Okay, this is also a roll call vote.
Mrs. Krentz.
It's a lot of money again, too. And our general fund is how much do we have in our general fund? Quite a lot.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Tim.
Yes.
Mr. Piaski.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Plata.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Wadle.
Yes.
Mr. Crawford. Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was no, sorry. So should I just have abstain or?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to abstain or do you want to actually vote? Just say I won't vote. Okay.
All right, resolution number 35-8-13, resolution authorizing changes to crisis team on-call and exempt status for all crisis workers.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would move to approve Resolution 35-08-13.
Motion approved by Weddy. Is there a second? Second by Pacini. Are there any questions or comments? All right, this is also roll call vote.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Tim?
Yes.
Mr. Piaski?
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein?
Aye.
Mr. Weddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Plata?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Wadle?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mrs. Krantz?
And next, we will go on to the resolution number 360813.
Acknowledgement of Linda Paluchek's service to and retirement from Waushara County.
Motion by Kirschner, second by Eckstein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we have some appointments. Board of Adjustment, Kevin Fitzgerald, Watoma. His term will be from September 2013 to April 2015. And John Sirk, he is the alternate from Hancock. His term will be September 2013 through April 2014.
Motion approved.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Whale, second by Reddy. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have a proclamation designating September 2013 as Juror Appreciation Month.
To adjourn.
No, but we're still on our proclamation.
Wait to adjourn.
Oh.
We have to approve that, Ruth, or is it just a proclamation? Motion by Bernadette,
Second.
second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, are there any board suggestions for future agenda items? And keep your hand up. Monday, yes.
I think we should put it on the agenda to discuss the problem with the floodplains that was brought up by the speakers earlier.
Did that not go to zoning first and then come here? Or do we?
Because we passed that resolution in May. I guess I would not have voted for that resolution if I'd have known that this is going to result in the problems that it has.
Okay, I think that's a good idea, Terry.
There has to be a way to fix it.
Okay. Now, August, what is Monday? August 30th? No, August
26.
26th, okay. Time flies, man. At 1 o'clock, the dispatch committee meeting will be meeting. The agenda will be mailed, but if you have anything, members of that committee, if you have anything that you'd like to add to the agenda, would you please give me a call, or maybe Deb, and
All right.
What committee is that?
okay, now, Everett.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Eckstein. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Reddy.
Are some of these yours?
All in favor? Opposed, same sign.
No, I got Breakfast of Champions.
Battery is.
Yeah, we did.
What?
You can look at it as spending money, or you can look at it as investing.
I know. I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion.
Like building, I know.
Any electric.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't tell him that. I told him that he should go to his town board and start there, and start working with them, have them come to us. Start at the whole chain and have them come to us. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't. It pissed me off.
Got keys.
I never said for him to
keys.
get
They're not gonna make it.
I told him, I said, go to your town board, work with them, have them come to zoning for the next thing, we'll see what we can do. And then the other thing is this Scott Motto. I did tell him, if you've got a problem with the inspector, ask for a different inspector. And if the other inspector goes out and finds the same shit thing wrong, then you gotta fix it. And that's what I told him. That's what I was gonna say. Just send Fred out. Just send Fred out.
I gave him that answer. Everybody. I double checked.
Where's this money coming from? Can't nobody see that? Yeah, you bond, but sooner or later they want that money back. You're gonna tax everybody right out of Washera County.
Wow.
You're gonna have to raise taxes pretty soon to pay for all
Yeah,
this.
it's probably a good thing to know before you start.
Well, the schools don't have a problem.
You know how much rich we do?
Thank you very much.
What do we get out of it? What do we get out of it? I'm not against the English sitting there, it's all like I'm against it, just money for it, just, yeah. I told you short.
I don't.
Well, $10 wouldn't be bad, but is it gonna stop it? I'm not against the building, it'd be a good idea.